You think the gym is a modern invention, some sweaty room with mirrors and protein shakes and guys filming themselves in tank tops.
But here's the thing. Humans have been chasing the exact same goal for over 3,000 years. Strength, speed, a body that actually works. And the wildest part is, the psychology hasn't changed even a little. So let's actually go back and see where all of this really started. Start in ancient Greece, because that's literally where the word gym comes from. Gymnasion. It meant, roughly, school for naked exercise, because that's exactly how Greek men trained, nude, oiled up, wrestling in dirt pits called the palaestra. And before you laugh, understand this wasn't some fringe hobby. The gymnasium was one of the central buildings of a Greek city, right next to the temple and the marketplace. You went there to wrestle, box, throw javelin and discus, run sprints, and also to study philosophy. Because Plato's Academy and Aristotle's Lyceum were literally built inside gymnasia. To the Greeks, training your body and training your mind were the same category of self-improvement. They didn't separate gym bro from intellectual. You were supposed to be both, or you weren't taken seriously as a citizen. And they didn't just show up and wing it. Greek athletes used equipment, actual weighted equipment, thousands of years before dumbbells existed. Long jumpers used stone or metal handheld weights called halteres, which they swung during the jump to add momentum. And also used separately just to build arm and shoulder strength. Archaeologists have literally dug up ancient Greek gym weights.
One of the most famous is the Stone of Bybon, a giant sandstone block found at a weighing over 300 pounds, with an inscription carved into it.
That's not a legend. That's a literal 6th century BC guy who left a permanent brag carved in stone next to his gym equipment. Some things never change. Speaking of legends, there's Milo of Croton, a 6-time Olympic wrestling champion, and probably the first documented case of someone understanding progressive overload. The story goes that as a young man, Milo started carrying a baby calf on his shoulders every single day. And every day, the calf got a little heavier, because that's what calves do. They grow. By the time that calf became a full-grown bull, Milo had been carrying it gradually for years and could now lift the entire animal over his head. Whether every detail of that story is exactly true doesn't even matter, because the principle inside it is the exact same principle written on every strength program today. You don't get strong by lifting something heavy once. You get strong by very slightly increasing the load over a period of time consistently until your body has no choice but to adapt. Ancient Greece figured that out with a cow.
Now travel east to ancient Persia, home of one of the most underrated training systems in human history, the Zurkhane, which literally translates to House of Strength.
Inside these buildings, men trained using tools. They look almost nothing like modern gym equipment, but function exactly the same way.
Heavy wooden clubs called meals swung overhead. They build shoulder and grip endurance.
Massive wooden shields called sang, lifted and pressed to build the back and chest.
All of it done together, as a group, to the sound of drumming and poetry, turning strength training into a ritual, closer to a spiritual ritual than a workout.
This wasn't about vanity, it was about discipline, community, the same core idea the Greeks had, showing up completely independently on the other side of the ancient world.
Then there's ancient India, where wrestling schools called akharas have existed for thousands of years, and are honestly still functioning almost exactly the same way today.
Wrestlers trained using a gada, a heavy stone or wooden mace, swung behind the back and around the body to build rotational strength and shoulder stability.
Which, by the way, is basically the ancestor of the steel mace you see fitness influencers swinging around today and calling revolutionary. They also use stone rings called nals for grip and forearm work, and performed thousands of bodyweight squats called baituk and push-ups called dans every single day, no equipment required. If you've ever done a burpee and felt like you invented suffering, know that Indian wrestlers were doing thousands of bodyweight reps a day, before iron was even common.
Ancient China had its own version. Soldiers and martial artists trained using massive stone weights called shisuo, or stone locks.
Shaped like giant padlocks with handles, used for centuries to build grip, forearm, and shoulder strength. Some Chinese military exams required candidates to lift a stone lock. This was just to qualify, which means somewhere in history there was a formal, written, government-mandated strength test, centuries before anyone had ever invented a barbell.
Ancient Egypt gets less credit here, but tomb paintings from around 2000 BC, specifically at Beni Hassan, show wrestlers in dozens of different holds and positions.
Egyptian soldiers also trained with sandbags for strength, one of the earliest forms of adjustable resistance training, because a sandbag is just a variable weight, whenever you need it.
And then you get to Rome, which basically industrialized the whole thing. Roman gladiators trained inside facilities called a ludus, run by professional trainers called doctores. So that cuts in the arena look dramatic without exposing anything vital, which means the first documented bulking phase in history was invented so people wouldn't die too quickly for entertainment.
So that fighting with the actual weapon in battle felt easy by comparison. The exact same logic behind training with a heavier bar than your working weight.
The Roman military writer Vegetius even wrote an entire manual on soldier conditioning, describing daily marches, swimming, weapons drills, and progressive physical training.
Essentially the first written fitness program in Western history. And it was created for war, not aesthetics.
So here's the actual pattern. If you zoom out across every single one of these civilizations, separated by thousands of miles, with basically no communication between them, none of them trained for how they looked. The Greeks trained for citizenship and philosophy. The Persians trained for discipline and spirituality.
The Indians trained for wrestling and warrior tradition. The Chinese trained to pass military exams. The Egyptians trained for combat. The Romans trained for war.
Every single ancient culture arrived at the same conclusion, completely independently, that physical training builds something in a person that nothing else can. Not comfort, not knowledge alone, not luck. The discipline that shows up in the body first, and then in everything else. The actual modern gym, the building with mirrors and machines you're picturing right now, didn't show up until the 1800s. When a German named Friedrich Ludwig Jahn built an outdoor training ground in Berlin in 1811 called a Turnplatz, using apparatus he basically invented himself.
Early versions of the parallel bars, the balance beam, the horizontal bar. Jean is actually the reason gymnastics is called gymnastics.
And his outdoor Turnhalle movement is the direct answer of the indoor gym as you know it. But even he wasn't inventing the concept.
He was just putting a modern building around something humans had already been doing with stones, calves, wooden clubs, and sandbags for 3,000 years before he ever showed up.
So the next time you walk into a gym and feel like picking up something heavy is somehow beneath you, or too much effort, or not worth the discomfort,
remember that this isn't a trend. This isn't main character energy for people with ring lights. This is one of the oldest, most consistent behaviors in human history, older than most religions, older than most languages still spoken today. Every civilization that ever built something worth remembering also built a place to get strong first. Maybe that's not a coincidence.
Maybe strength was never really about how you look in a mirror. Maybe it was always about proving to yourself that you can carry the weight, literally, and then everything else.